upcoming EU summit. The aim is to shift attention away from Ukraine and the aid it needs. Europe is now moving from being a peace project without arms to one that includes armed defense. Because of democratic processes, Europe tends to move slower on defense decisions compared to dictatorships. However, recent defense investments and cooperative mechanisms have made Europe stronger than it was 6 months ago. Let's listen into what Kristen and Michal has said.
I would say on Poland's incident and Estonian airspace violation, the pattern probably is quite clear that they don't respect any boundaries. They are all the time testing these boundaries. And when you step on somebody's borders or boundaries, then you try to achieve that they are more concerned with themselves. So this is the pattern. Putin wants to have us talking about ourselves, not about Ukraine, not about helping Ukraine, not to push back Russia and Ukraine. So that is quite clear.
Estonia's Prime Minister Kristen Michal says that Russia's recent air incursions are intended to distract Europe from supporting Ukraine ahead of the upcoming EU summit. The aim is to shift attention away from Ukraine and the aid it needs. Europe is now moving from being a peace project without arms to one that includes armed defense. Because of democratic processes, Europe tends to move slower on defense decisions compared to dictatorships. However, recent defense investments and cooperative mechanisms have made Europe stronger than it was 6 months ago. Estonia's Prime Minister Kristen Michal says Russia's recent air incursions are intended to distract Europe from supporting Ukraine ahead of the upcoming EU summit. The aim is to shift attention away from Ukraine and aid it needs. Europe is now moving from being a peace project without arms to one that includes armed defense. Because of democratic processes, Europe tends to move slower in defense decisions compared to dictatorships. However, recent defense investments and cooperative mechanisms have made Europe stronger than it was 6 months ago. Now for this discussion, we go back to Professor Veselin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, looking at this news, Prime Minister Michal mentions that Europe is evolving from a peace project without arms to one that includes armed defense. Now, what do you think? What is your reaction to this news?
Well, again, I said earlier that Europe needs to defend itself and it needs to take the correct decisions, mostly because of the threats coming from the Russian Federation, including drones, including incursions by some airplanes. So it's a question of capacity to build kind of a very solid defense of the airspace. It's not easy because it's a large territory. It's a lot of airspace over Europe, and Russia has a border with every single country from Finland to basically to Romania, if we include Ukrainian territory now. So yes, it will take some time, it will take a lot of money, but the right decisions are taken, and that's the good news, that when the plan is there, when the decisions are made, then it becomes questions of financing, numbers, preparation, time. But once that defense is established, hopefully one day soon, Europe will be protected against further incursions and further threats from the Russian Federation.
And what are the key challenges and opportunities for Europe as it strengthens its defense capabilities while maintaining its democratic stance?
Yes, one challenge is the public opinion. Obviously, people are not happy when a lot of money is spent on military. For them, more important things are like education, health, hospitals, schools, children. And when the military budget goes up, nobody's happy. But that's a necessary price to pay because, as we know from the past, when states are not spending enough on their defense and they are object of attacks, people die. And human life is probably the invaluable, the most valuable asset for the nation. So to defend itself, states need to spend on military, they need to spend on weapons. Even if the challenge is how European public will vote in the next elections. Will they support the current governments? And I hope they do. And we see that most of the elections recently do not go the way of nationalist and pro-Russian parties. The most recent example being Moldova a couple of days ago. Moldova also made the decision pro-European and anti-Russian. And all the other Eastern European countries, well, apart from Hungary, at the moment are very pro-European and anti-Russian. So yes, the hopes are that the next elections in all European countries will continue to support the right policy, which is to be prepared for Russian attack, including prepared, the public should be prepared as well. They need to understand that that needs to be done through a lot of information sharing, a lot of education. The public needs to understand as to support the government. The government needs to be very transparent and informative.
Yes, with that, I would like to thank our guest, Professor Veselin Popovsky, for joining us today and sharing your insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Africa. Violent clashes have erupted in several Moroccan cities between youths and security forces, following days of protests demanding health and educational reforms. Videos show masked demonstrators in Ezgain near Agadir throwing stones, setting fires and damaging property. Similar incidents have been reported in Eit Emira, Beni Mellal and Oujda, with no confirmed injuries. The youth group led Gen Z 212 urged participants to remain peaceful and avoid vandalism. More than 200 demonstrators have been arrested in Rabat over the past 3 days. Most later released. In Casablanca, 18 people have faced investigations for obstructing traffic, including 6 minors referred to a specialized court. Morocco's governing coalition said it listens to social demands and is ready to respond responsibly. The protests follow public outrage over the deaths of 8 pregnant women at an Agadir hospital, highlighting social inequalities.